I think we all know the story of Cinderella and her terrible stepsisters, but this may be the first time we get to witness the true body horror one of the siblings endures in order to no longer be considered the ugly stepsister. This isn't for the faint of heart thanks to some nastiness, but does the film present more than just a gross out? Elvira battles against her gorgeous stepsister in a realm where beauty reigns supreme. In a desperate attempt, she resorts to extreme measures to captivate the prince, amidst a ruthless competition for physical perfection. Now, there are going to be a lot of comparisons to 2024's The Substance, simply because this also features the unimaginable body horror a young woman is willing to endure in her pursuit of perceived beauty. Now, this is a Norwegian production, and the film captures the cold and dreary setting that is necessary to frame the desperation of an almost destitute family. And what should be looked at as necessity for survival and trying to win the prince's affection, really, it's unbridled greed, initiated and perpetuated by Elvira's mom, who is also the stepmom of Agnes, who we better know as Cinderella. Now, the story sort of follows the Disney-fied story that we're familiar with, except we get way more insight and time spent with the step family rather than Agnes. Now, right from the start, the film is bleak. I mean, it's gray, cold, and just devoid of most joy. And this complements the melancholy and depression of the family as it becomes clear how very poor they actually are and find themselves without any hope or funds. And because one day the prince will come, the sisters are invited to a ball, along with all of the other eligible young women, where the prince will then choose his bride. Now, something the Cinderella story usually skips over is all of the primping and training the kingdom's women endure in order to be the fairest and most desirable. Elvira is told that she can't begin to compare with her exquisitely beautiful stepsister Agnes, and so in order to become ready to woo the prince, Elvira is forced to undergo some torturous measures. This is when the body horror slowly begins. We watch Elvira get a crude nose job, which is not only excruciating to watch, but for months afterward, she must wear this nose piece that would make her feel right at home hanging with Shock G. While the scene is horrifying and painful, the reaction we get to see from Elvira's younger sister is hilariously grim. Her discomfort matches ours as she squirms and winces, just covers her eyes at the savagery that's happening in front of her. But that's not where the gross outs end. The social commentary of the story focuses, pretty obviously I think, on how the pressures of external beauty are held in higher esteem and importance than a person's inner beauty. And this isn't a new idea, but it's new in the barbaric way that we watch it illustrated. There's even a point where the dialogue comes across as supportive and sympathetic to Elvira, acknowledging that she has inward beauty, only then to have the meaning twisted so that it's a devastating dig rather than a compliment. The scorn and rebuffing Elvira receives from many of the other young women in the kingdom, as well as just the etiquette experts, it's meant to make her a sympathetic victim. And it is effective. The treatment she receives, it's harsh and mean. I mean, it's Mean Girls without technology, and then a whole lot more Black Plague. The storytelling works to make us believe that Elvira is really the pawn of her mother, that she doesn't want to have any of these body modifications done to her. And once we've embraced that mentality, the story flips the character on us and shows us a completely different side. And the visuals in this, while not shown all of the time, they are certainly something that are going to make you think twice about having any sort of body modifications. You'll also want to avoid eating while watching this. The practical effects and makeup are grotesque, with a couple of the scenes being so extreme in their severity that it's difficult not to turn away at some point. I mean, just some of the things that come into play, and these are out of context, so they don't give much away. Think maggots, eyelashes, eating disorders, and body shaping. I mean, each time we get to witness a new transformation with Elvira, it made my butt pucker and my stomach tense. Not that I was going to throw up, but my senses were having a visceral reaction to the visuals. I mean, they're painful and so realistic looking that you can almost feel the sensations that Elvira is experiencing. And don't go into this thinking that it's just going to be a gore fest right from the start, or even all the way through the story. The progression allows us to first become engaged with the characters before unleashing the first bit of nastiness. And even then, after that first round, we have to wait patiently again before more horrors are presented to us. But don't let this discourage you either. When the gnarliness does come into play, it is wildly satisfying in the most unhinged way. There's a combination of scenes at the climax that are some of the most intensely gross actions that I've seen in quite a while. And I love that the film doesn't show these briefly and then move on. It makes us sit in utter discomfort for way longer than seems necessary, capturing creatively crafted foulness, but also adding the needed, unflinching point of the message. And because there are stretches that we watch Elvira moving through her etiquette classes, some portions of the story drag and they feel repetitive, giving us repeated sequences that showcase Elvira enduring disappointment and rebuffment time and time again. While this does reinforce her discouraged mindset, it also slows down the storytelling so that there are noticeable lags. I gotta use less of the brooding with the monotonous action of Elvira just wishing that she could be the center of the ball performance in order to not have the pacing lose momentum or immediacy. And it's also strange that there are several of these types of sequences because the story also employs some time jumps to get us through the moments leading up to the ball faster, and yet the movie still stalls a bit. Now, something that felt oddly out of place within this is the sudden introduction of magic of sorts. I mean, I know in the cartoon Cinderella, she's visited by a fairy godmother who transforms a pumpkin into a coach and has the shiny blue dress all perfect and sparkly. The fantasy version within the animation, it's fine, and it fits with all of the other magical elements that are introduced. Here, though, we get a spectral vision. I mean, it's not creepy, but I'm not convinced that the being that we see is alive either. But there's a brief line about being back by midnight, otherwise the coach is going to turn into a pumpkin. Huh? I mean, where did all this come from all of a sudden? There had been zero magic, or even hints of something other than tangible actions. The story then also employs a gimmick that allows a dress to be augmented. And again, where did the rationale from this come from? I mean, if the story had set up any sort of magical belief prior, I could buy the inclusion of these mystical alterations. But because it isn't, this is an out-of-left-field sort of oddball that absolutely did not work for me, even if it did conjure images of the cartoon classic. And because this is the story of Cinderella, just told from a completely different perspective, we can assume there is a happily ever after. But since we're watching from Elvira's point of view, don't assume the birds are going to be singing and the forest will be filled with the cheers of congratulations that are emanating from the palace. While the ending isn't going to leave you completely dissolved in a state of despair, it's still very grim, which is exactly the type of resolution the film deserves. To provide anything other than something dark would really be a disservice to the storytelling, and it wouldn't feel earned in the slightest. Here, there's the right amount of consequences while not being devoid of every glimmer of hope. So overall, The Ugly Stepsister is a horrifyingly graphic and grotesque commentary on the pursuit of beauty and self-worth. The practical effects are astounding, providing the extreme level of gore needed to shock and disgust, while also making us feel the violence in our bones. With melancholic overtones and grim themes, the film is complemented by outstanding costume and set designs, balancing greedy indulgence with desperate destitution. The visuals should make you squirm in discomfort while the story enthralls at the psychotically focused pursuit of wealth and status. Some elements drag the pace down through repetitious sequences, but the payoff we receive at the finale is going to make you forget all about any lag. There's sex, nudity, some profanity, and then some very graphic and gnarly violence. I give The Ugly Stepsister 4 out of 5 couches. And I think this is going to stick with you for just a bit, even if it is only in your nightmares. So what is one of the grossest movies that you've ever seen? For me, there is a scene in Mad God that is both visually nasty, but it's made so much worse because of the audio. We hear squishing and squelching of flesh. It's stomach-turning. I would love to know, though, what has grossed you out. Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.